fiction, the literature and the cinema of the fantastic. It's a sociologically based art form. It wants to get to the heart of human nature. And sometimes that reflects very well. And sometimes it's the opposite. Not our better angels, but our fouler demons. I was a science fiction nerd, as a youngster, and that made you a bit of an oddball. If you were reading Ray Bradbury and Arthur Clarke and Isaac Asimov and Harlan Ellison, that made you kind of a weirdo. The jocks would look at you and go, "You like that science fiction stuff, huh?" And like, "Yeah, I guess I do."
What is it? Where did it come from?
Somehow, the literary science fiction seldom made its way into the movies, which tended to look at science fiction as kind of a spectacle. Since I'm a child of the 50s, I saw most of my science fiction on television and in the movies.
I thought I'd seen everything. Just look at those cities.
When I was 10, I discovered Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. And that was really my sort of lifeline to other geeks.
I grew up in the 80s. As a kid in that era, my first introduction to science fiction was through Spielberg and George Lucas. They made science fiction so affable and so entertaining that it just was easy to jump on board.
Play the pipe tones.
If somebody was to ask me to define science fiction, I would probably say it's what we're living in.
We aren't dealing with ordinary machines here. These are highly complicated pieces of equipment. We don't know exactly how they work.
I think the literal definition of science fiction is a fictional story that extrapolates current scientific knowledge and brings it into the future, but sort of realistically extrapolates what could happen.
The Martians can conquer the Earth in 6 days.
Any story that contains elements that lie beyond the boundaries of what is currently possible in our reality.
It is an examination of humanity. Where have we been? Where are we going? What are the pitfalls? What are the dangers? It's a brilliant tool for looking inward as much as an art form. It tends to look outward, out toward the future, out toward the stars.
We interrupt this program to give you a bulletin just received from one of our naval units at sea. A large object traveling at supersonic speed is headed over the North Atlantic toward the east coast of the United States.
The Day the Earth Stood Still starts off like a lot of alien invasion science fiction movies. A flying saucer appears and it lands. And then, unlike a lot of science fiction movies, it then does nothing. It just sort of sits there. And finally, the military comes out and everybody comes out. And when the alien emerges, he's very benevolent. And it's humanity that makes the first mistake. He reaches into his pocket and he gets shot. Surprise.
I merely tell you that the future of your planet is at stake. I urge that you transmit that message to the nations of the Earth.
I will make that recommendation to the President.
The enemy in The Day the Earth Stood Still is really ourselves. And yet, he's also a threat to us as well.
It's almost fascistic in the fact that the alien comes down and threatens to wipe us out if we don't mend our ways.
Day the Earth Stood Still is fundamentally a retelling of the Jesus story.
What is it you want?
My name is Carpenter. I'm looking for a room.
Oh, I see. Are you an FBI man?
He comes to Earth to give us a message of peace and tell us we can treat each other better. And he has a rough time of it.
Your choice is simple. Join us and live in peace, or pursue your present course and face obliteration. We shall be waiting for your answer. The decision rests with you.
A few minutes from now, we may have the key to the stars. 1 million years of history are waiting for us in that ice.
The Thing from Another World is huge in sci-fi. It was really the first science fiction movie by an A-list producer, Howard Hawks. And it sort of legitimized the genre of sci-fi that the lower budget movies hadn't done.
It's just something of a funhouse ride of paranoia, where you get to exercise the fears of, oh, well, what if something shows up here that really doesn't like us or doesn't even care about us?
It sounds like, well, just as though you're describing some form of super carrot.
This carrot, as you call it, is constructed an aircraft capable of flying some millions of miles through space, propelled by a force as yet unknown to us.
An intellectual carrot, the mind boggles.
Shouldn't.
The alien is not necessarily portrayed as evil. If you look at it coldly, he's really just doing what he needs to do to survive. And what he needs to do to survive is he needs to take over. And these people are his food. And no matter how the scientist tries to explain to him that they don't hate him, they hate him. Let's face it, he's the thing.
It's not here for a good reason. It's here for a very bad reason. It wants to take over the Earth. The end of the movie is possibly the most famous part of the film, where it's not a happy ending. They say, like, you know, keep watching the skies, keep watching the skies.
Tell the world, tell this to everybody wherever they are. Watch the skies, everywhere.
What's also interesting is that The Thing from Another World and Day the Earth Stood Still were both made in 1951. And they represented two sides of the alien invasion coin. The aliens will come and they will be benevolent. The aliens will come and they will be malevolent. In 1982, The Thing was remade by John Carpenter. At the same time, Steven Spielberg made E.T. Once again, both films representing two sides of the same coin. The aliens are going to come and they will be lovely, and the aliens will come and they will be horrific. And it's funny that The Thing in both cases represented the flip side of that coin.
I think filmmakers have always been attracted to science fiction and to science fictional worlds, because as a director, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a world anyway.
The imagination can run wild. Abilities are limitless within the bounds of sci-fi, and that's got to be very appealing.
There's a lot of things that you can show that people haven't seen before. It's also a technical challenge because very often you're asked to make real things that have not been real yet in the movies, and you try to overcome that. Unfortunately, some audiences sort of reject older films because they think, well, look, that doesn't look real. Well, it looked as real as they could make it real with the money that they had. The impact that these movies had is one of the reasons why this genre is still popular.
And that goes back to the first trip to the moon. It goes back to Fritz Lang and Metropolis, and those cityscapes are phenomenal. Things to come. You get to create worlds.
The thing about Forbidden Planet that was different for me was that I got to see it for free with Quaker Oats box tops. MGM did a promotion. If you bought enough Quaker's Oats, which meant you had to eat them, and saved the box tops, you could actually get into the screening of Forbidden Planet.
Captain and crew, now hear this. We are now entering the atmosphere of Altair 4. Oxygen content...
Just from a standpoint of production design and costume design and just premise, it's a really important film. It's interesting to watch it with modern eyes for a number of reasons. It's half a very forward-thinking, fascinating, smart movie, and half really clunky romance.
Just once more, do you mind?
Not at all.
From the forward-thinking part of it, we've got something that talks about the human subconscious and the dangers of the monsters that lurk within and suppressed feelings you don't even know you have, and it winds up being a really smart movie in so many ways.
Prepare your minds for a new scale of physical scientific values, gentlemen.
I love it by contemporary eyes, for its failings as much as for what it succeeded in doing that still holds up so well.
This is no offense, but you are a robot, aren't you?
That is correct, sir. For your convenience, I am monitored to respond to the name Robbie.
Robbie the robot steals the show.
What is it you require this time, Miss Alta?
Robbie, I must have a new dress right away.
Robbie is the grandfather of all the great cinema robots and has an incredibly specific and memorable design. And he showed up on The Twilight Zone. He showed up in Lost in Space. He had sort of a weird career of his own.
Previous robots had been kind of clunky. They're just sort of metal tubes with blockheads. And this one was beautifully designed. Inside were a number of people who sometimes got fired for being drunk inside the costume.
Well, you low-living contraption, I ought to take a can opener to you.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.